All right, welcome back, everybody. Now, society creates an impression that rape and sexual abuse doesn't happen to boys or men. We need to start talking in order to break the silence. That's according to Martin Pelders. He's a rape survivor who has taken action and founded Matrix Men. You saw it in the insert. It's an online support base for male survivors. Martin, as I mentioned before the break, is in studio with us to tell us more and also to introduce the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, Fanozel Washozi. He's in our Durban studios. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's really good to have you here on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, Fano, thank you and
Thank
welcome
you
as
for
well.
having us.
Okay, let's, Martin, I'll let you kick off this conversation. Obviously, by calling on government to do more, you feel they're not doing enough.
Well, they're not doing anything in terms of male victims. So we're talking about male victims that have been abused sexually as children or male victims that have been raped as adults. And actually nothing is ever said about it or done about it. So there are no resources, hence the fact that I started the organization.
Yeah.
You know, I was going through my healing process when I discovered this 4 or 5 years ago, and it was just, you know, it was just impossible because you go to therapists, don't know about it. There is absolutely, believe me, absolutely nothing available in this country for male survivors of sexual abuse.
Mfano, I'm going to bring you into the conversation here, and just, you know, hearing something like that is disturbing, and especially coming from the Gender Equality Commission. I mean, that's what your work is to ensure that men and women receive the same, equal treatment. How do you feel when we hear, especially from male survivors of sexual abuse, that there is no help at hand for them?
I don't think so, Leanne. I think men should actually come out and exploit the services that institutions like us, the Gender Commission and government provide. Even if you look at the South African legislative framework, you will see that it's very gender sensitive even to men. But what we have actually picked up along the way is that men are not actually coming out. Yes, we agree that here and there are no support services, but I think it's important to actually mention that we have very gender-sensitive laws. We have institutions like the Commission for Gender Equality, we have NGOs, and we have even government departments that are actually receptive to men. The Department of Social Development as well, nationally, have programs that are actually welcoming men to come to the fore and report such cases. And we have a number and a barrage of NGOs throughout the country. And we also welcome the establishment of the Matrix to actually assist in the fight against rape for men. But I think what is important is that we come from a very patriarchal society where men have not been allowed to air their views, to actually come forth when it comes to these particular issues. Yeah. And therefore I think we need to open that particular space. But I think in legislative regime, everything is actually there. People should actually come to us to report such cases, but I think the education needs to actually carry on to educate people around these particular issues, particularly men, because I think they come from patriarchal society who are not actually allowing them to actually come forth and even to go to the hospitals to check themselves and so on. Perhaps so it's not just that the government...
Yeah. Perhaps there's not enough... there's not enough advertising out there, or there's not enough... It's not spoken about enough, because to be honest with you, I mean, I can name off the top of my head 10 organizations that if as a woman you have been abused, there are call centers, there are help centers, there's so many things around. Personally, besides now being introduced to Matrix Men, I don't know one single organization, and maybe I'm wrong. I really,
You're not.
Honestly, because
there's
I
two
just
organizations in this country.
2 organizations.
There's 2. There's Matrix Men and there's SABC, South African males of survivors of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, in terms
That's not true. That's not true, Leanne, because we have men's forum around the country. We have organizations within SABC. We have Songatina Justice. We have a barrage of organizations actually assisting men. We have men. I think what you are saying, what is correct, is that we don't have advertising has not actually come tops when it comes to these particular matters. Yeah. But as a Commission for Gender Equality, we can give you a list, a number of organizations that we have. Even SANEC men that use HIV and AIDS issues are there. Even organizations themselves have started to actually establish men's forum. Even at the SABC, they have their own men's forum that actually.
Okay, so but what you do admit, so hold on. So what you do admit and acknowledge is that there's not enough awareness, and that there needs to be more awareness about these organizations. They're existing, but we need to speak about it more. So hang on one sec before we come back to you in Durban. Martin, I mean, there have been instances where people, well, we've heard Zano saying people must come forward, male victims must come forward. But there are instances where, I mean, you were telling me off air, a male victim goes into a police station to report a case, and...
We had a 16-year-old boy who went in, he was raped violently by 5 men. And he went in to report the case, and the police laughed at him and said, "Go home, sissy."
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's not the sort of thing that we need in this country. And he says there are organisations out there. Yes, there are organisations out there, but the problem is coming from the point of view as a male survivor. When you phone an organisation like this and you ask them for specific support for men, they say, "No, we have support groups for women. We have support groups for prisoners, we have support groups, but we don't have support groups for male survivors."
Yeah.
And that's a fact. Unless it's changed in the last year or two, it hasn't.
Okay.
As I know, there's 2 organisations that are specific to male survivors.
Let's just talk about your case for now. When did this happen to you? At what age were you?
From my earliest memories that I recovered were from about the age of 5, 6.
5, 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the biggest thing, it carried on until I was 19, until I was drafted into the army in those days. And it was kind of a savior for me because I realized that I was strong enough to actually tell these people to leave me alone.
Yeah.
And the problem is the myths and perceptions that surround this whole process. When you try and approach people, most often it happens sort of in the close family unit. So it's stepfathers, uncles. So this whole myth about it's the stranger out there with the big trench coat and, the lollipops in his pockets and things, that's a lot of nonsense. So parents need to get real about this thing, and they need to say that it starts within the family unit. That's where the majority of the abuse happens. And then it kind of moves out from there. So it goes to neighbors, teachers, pastors, preachers, and so it goes to eventually it's only about, between 5 and 10% of rapes on children, perpetrated on all children. And I don't talk specifically about men, I talk in general about children, boys and girls. About 5 to 10% of the rapes are perpetrated by strangers. So this is the biggest problem, is that when the child comes out and says, "Mom, Uncle so-and-so is doing something to me," and she goes, "Oh man, he's my brother, I know you would never do something like that."
Yeah.
And the second that a parent says something like that, the child shuts down. Because then they internalize the whole thing, they blame themselves, and they say, "Well, it must be something that I've done."
Yeah, yeah.
And then you get a child that will then go through his entire life using drugs, being an alcoholic, or
to try and
cope,
to cope and get those thoughts away from him.
And then the parents go, "Oh, such a bad child. Oh, he's so sweet. What happened?"
Yeah, yeah.
That's what happened.
But nobody's listening to them.
Yes, people need to listen to their children and believe them.
Yeah. Coming back to you, Mfano Zalwa, the organizations that we've mentioned, I know we say that there needs to be a little bit more awareness, but groundwork, what's being done out there to try and assist victims of male male abuse?
Something is being done, but let's say that, as I've said earlier on, that the problem is that, for example, in South Africa, we have Tutuzela centers, we have other programs as well that actually assist from the government side. But a lot is being done to actually put men's organizations together to try and assist. For example, even the hospitals, the clinics, a lot has been done to try and actually assist around these particular issues. And men's forums as well. I think where we have most of the problems in the rural areas, where we don't have enough adequate resources to actually assist male victims. But when we also look at the 16 days of activism per se, it does not only exclude boys, because in South Africa in 1999, this is a campaign that is trying to actually fight violence against women. But in South Africa, a decision was made to actually make sure that we include children, which also includes boys and girls. And when we look at the campaign, there are 4 very distinctive, very important dates, which is the 25th and the 1st, the 3rd, and the 6th and the 10th. All those dates are very accommodative as well to men, because there are men who are HIV positive, there are men who are also disabled, and the International Day on the 10th as well is also about everyone. It's also about race, gender, and emancipation of all races, and emancipation of all people. So you could see that, but it's also important for us to focus focus on women and violence against women as well, but also should not discard men as part of people who are being abused as well. So I think the campaign is trying by all means to actually accommodative to both men, to both boys, girls and children.
Yeah, indeed. And I know that that's something, Martin, that you feel very, very strongly about. My producer said in my ear that we have got a little bit of time in the next hour. So if you're willing to stay just for about 10 minutes until 7:10, if I can ask you to do the same, Mfana Zolwa, just for about 10 minutes, we're going to get the news out to our viewers and then just continue this discussion, which I think is really not spoken about enough here in South Africa. So we'll continue this discussion. If you'd like to write to us, please do. We'd love to hear from you at Morning Live SABC, male abuse in South Africa. Let's take a quick break. The news at 7 follows.